Hello, my name is Yavuz Berkerakın, and I'd like to invite you to journey through my master dissertation project called Mutual Living in Mörde student neighborhood. This project is carried out with Kai Leuven Faculty of Architecture under supervision of my promoter Luc Eekhout within the International Master Studio Healing the City. Mörde neighborhood is located in the north part of the Ghent. It is a unique neighborhood as it is surrounded by water from three sides, which gives the land its island character. This neighborhood is also very important and known for its industrial activities and its new harbor where the global transportation of goods takes place. When we look at the character of a neighborhood, two different identities reveal itself in terms of density, speed of life, and human activities. You can observe a more dynamic texture in the southern part, which is gradually changing as you move to the north. South part of a neighborhood can be considered as a dynamic part, as it is located in the intersection point of two important roads, where most of the facilities are located. In contrary, in the north part of the Mörde, we can easily observe the dynamic character is eroding and we are starting to feel the dominance of a calmer, natural character. Parallel to that, we can observe the differentiation of human activities. For example, there are various types of community gardens located in the different part of northern side of the Mörde. After choosing Mörde neighborhood as a project location with studio group, I made my first trip to one of a natural park located in the northern part of the neighborhood. After leaving the Mörde State Park, I extended discovered this hidden natural area located in between the apartments. To record my observations, I used filming technique in order to keep the spirit of the place alive through the research process for me and now for the viewers. The first thing I saw was a tiny pathway. The nature of the pathway has highly impressed me. It felt like its architecture was crafted by the community and belonged to the community. The proportion of the pathway was so small when compared with the nature that surrounds it. It seemed to me that the community wished for a pathway to pass through the site without harming it. My second observation was the perennial trees, which creates a poetic view with their thick dark brown trunks. The scenery gave me the same feeling of a forest after the rain. I recalled some memories, and their dominance in the site was explicit, but I felt that I should respect their existence. However, the ground was occupied with household waste, which was an unusual but an interesting scene. Every object which did not belong to there was an evidence of the trace of human being. My third observation was layers of borders. Some of them were made of wood and were transparent, whereas some of them were thick and concrete solids. Finally, the construction waste, where you can find tons of wood that just lying in between the mounds. Then I left the site with full of questions in my mind. The questions about the nature and our relationship with it. The question regarding our land usage, which had risen after my site visit, triggered me to research on a bigger scale. I wanted to investigate what percentage of the earth we are occupying as humans. To do that research, I went to library and discovered previous research regarding the city of Ghent. One of the research about the land use in Ghent was showing that the high amount of land is used for dwelling activity. However, I became even more affected when I saw the large amount of land is occupied with agricultural purpose. Following to that, I realized that the critical relation of industrial agriculture to the natural environment, which made me interested in the topic of food. The remarkable amount of lands that has been deforested, and it's irrecoverable. Also, the map was showing the main food is being transported from these irrecoverable lands to city center, which reinforced the pollution and traffic. As a result, I questioned this linear, unsustainable system. Is there an alternative way to that? Can we integrate the food system into cities, into our lives? After that, I made a second visit to neighborhood in order to further research on how the food system is working in the neighborhood. That visit was a turning point for my research. I've discovered three sites which was carrying the similar characters with the hidden natural area I experienced in my former visit. These three sites were publicly accessible, but there were no users, even wild nature was covering most of the area. However, the traces of the human activity were still there. There were ruined buildings, some of half burned, the others were taken over by wild nature. But my main interest was triggered by the thick long border which was raw, lacking any paint or cover, and I finally realized that I was looking to the back side of the building, the rear facades. These untreated natural sites were located behind the private back gardens of the apartments which were surrounded by thick walls, mostly with no void for transition. I assumed that was the reason for the site was filled with waste and ruined buildings. These sites are neglected due to their spatial isolation. Nobody wants to be there, so that the nature can find the space to bloom. The common characters of neglected sites I discovered were speaking to me. When I analyzed an aerial view, locations of those sites were creating a sequence which made me realize the potential for possible food production hubs, which would enable us to transfer the agriculture inside the cities. In that way, instead of creating a vast centralized hub, which is unsustainable according to my research, my intervention took a language of smaller distributed hubs for food growing and natural revival, a decentralized system. It is important to add that during the coronavirus situation, waiting in long queues in front of the big supermarkets and the rising costs due to our dependencies to external resources made me almost sure that the centralized organization for food system is fragile, and decentralized organization can be the possible answer for the future. After we have chosen the north part of Mörder for our research as studio group, I decided to focus on the site that I first visited as a testing area for the idea of decentralized food system. Also, the land connection with Mörder State Park and nearby school was making it more interesting to investigate further. To understand the existing spirit of the site, I extracted the elements that I found important in the aerial view. Existing pathway was one of the crucial elements as it is connecting the site with the school and Mörder State Park. Wide landscape character of the site was second key element in order to carry the logic of nature and human relationship and how we affect the land. Thick long borders are the final key element for me in the existing character of the site, as they block the entrances from the apartments. To keep and enhance the general structure of the site, I further investigate the existing elements and let them guide me through the construction of my design language, my response to the situation. For example, the existing tree house was a crucial structure which was constructed by the people who were possibly residing there. In the end, I've reached a final view in my head that where all the wild nature will grow and create a micro-scale forest, which will be protected by the surrounding buildings and their inhabitants. The enclosing borders will become porous, so that people can pass through the site from their back gardens. The transformed site will host activities engaged with nature and food growing for the community. The new public greenhouse with seed bank and a gathering center, where the community can come together there for shared knowledge and seeds. Next part of the presentation will consist of scenes from a story that takes place in 2050. The story will be told from a student perspective who is visiting the Maude for his architectural project. After I had taken the assignment from school, I took a boat from the city center and arrived at the new mobility hub of the Maude State neighborhood. In order to explore the site, I started to walk towards the eastern part. As I walked approximately 20 meters away from the mobility hub, a fresh breeze blowing towards me started to touch my face. I sensed a sharp, distinctive forest smell, which I followed through. Behind the buildings, in the corner, I was able to hear children's noises. I assumed there was a school there. After I passed the street, I found myself facing towards the entrance of the natural area. I was able to see long trees elongated in between the houses. Just near me, long wild grass, covering the ground, was dancing along the way, accompanying me to walk in the side. And I entered. I recognized an apple orchard on my left. The trees were shining under the spring sun. The red color was so bright that it was almost looking like painted. I followed the pathway on my right side. There were hedges of cranberries and blueberries. The colors of nature were so impressive that I had the aspiration to taste them. Then I saw a woman in front of me. She was eating from the trees. I was feeling starving as I haven't eaten anything since I left school. Can I pick one blueberry? I asked. Of course you can, she replied. Welcome to Guten Tag, boss. This path is called Edible Path, where you can eat as much as you like while enjoying your journey, she continued. And if you follow the path and take the right, there you will see the greenhouse, where you can find some information about all your questions regarding the site, she said. When I followed the path, I found the greenhouse, which was barely recognizable behind the trees. It was almost not there. Thin wooden columns of the greenhouse were delicately blending into the nature surrounding it. One cannot easily differentiate the columns of the greenhouse from the trunks of the trees. The public space in front of me was calling me to explore the structure and nature behind it. Instantly, I realized that the smell I sensed before was coming from this forest. After that, I went inside the greenhouse to take some information about my school project. Interior atmosphere was welcoming and calming, also full of playful smells. After I spent time inside the greenhouse, I followed the wooden stairs extending from the courtyard, which was guiding me towards an open space. I found myself moving through a linear public circulation path where the dynamic view of the microforests which growing in between the apartments can be enjoyed. While I was walking in between the wooden structures, I realized spider webs stretching in and around window frames. It seemed to me that they're also considered as a part of building an environment. One more time, I was dazzled with the fact that how much respect shown to nature by this community. When I finished my journey inside the greenhouse, I was exhausted and tired. I wanted to sit and rest. Luckily, I recognized an organic tea house just 10 meters away from the building. I took one chair and sat under the bright sky. When I started to observe the tea house building, I assumed that the building might be a ruined building before and converted into a tea house because it was the only building in the site which is made of concrete. While I was drinking a fresh iced tea, an old man came and sat next to me. He smiled. I said hello to him to show my respect. I was a bit embarrassed. He smiled again warmly and said, "You look like a curious young boy. Would you like to hear the story of this place?" I said, "I will be glad," with a shy excitement. Then he looked at my face and started his story calmly. It was 30 years ago. 20s. It was a time when everything has started. This place was full of waste. The forest that you see behind the greenhouse was untreated land with few trees and wild weeds. One day, we heard the news that one of the construction company will clear all the nature here and build one of these apartments covering the entire land. That was a time when the issue of climate change was becoming popular. Word was freaking. There was a virus spreading to the entire world. We were stuck inside our houses. We discussed with our neighbors about doing something to cancel the planned housing project. We wanted to protect our environment, son. His eyes were looking proud. One night, we made a guerrilla planting on the edge of our borders, he continued. Then we occupied the land which we were claiming for our common sources. The day government cancelled the project, we celebrated. But we didn't stop, because we liked agriculture. We enjoyed to touch, to play with the earth. 6 years after, when global warming becomes serious, our crops died due to unstable weather. We were all frustrated, but we didn't stop. We decided to construct a greenhouse unit for every tree family and attach this to our borders. In that way, we would also be able to open our borders to reach the common lands from our backyards. And somebody from community came up with the idea to locate the greenhouse 4 meters high from the ground. As a result of what we would be able to still use the ground to growing vegetables and let them grow united with the forest. When most of the families in the community joined us, we decided to connect all the greenhouses with one circulation deck, and in the end, we built a one big community greenhouse with a seed bank, which you probably have visited before coming here. The construction of the big guy was not that hard, as the unit we designed was convertible to different scales and functions. In the end, we got our backyard back. Now think about whether there will be an apartment here instead of a forest, and maybe we would never be able to eat our fresh food cultivated from our collective back garden. If I tell this story in 20s, you wouldn't believe it, son. But we did it. We have become a big family now. Everybody knows each other here because we are sharing a story together. While he was finishing his last words, he paused and called out her grandchildren Maria. He turned to me and said, "She's studying in this school. When springtime comes, every day we are coming to the organic shop here to buy apple ice cream to her. I assure you it's the best organic ice cream in the Ghent. Come son, I will buy you one and you can taste it." I followed them through the organic shop and tasted the ice cream. It was one of a kind. It's made of fresh apples from the orchard. When I talked with the guy in the ice cream shop, I learned that I can work voluntarily here to help taking care of the plants in the greenhouse. And in return, I can accommodate freely in the houses that they have converted from the greenhouse units. After that, he gave me a map of Mörde. It was showing the other food production hubs located in different parts of the neighborhood. And they said, if I follow the path through, I can freely experience the production lines surrounded with various forest areas and public facilities. It was a really inspiring and fulfilling day.